My name is Jessica Reynolds and I'm 32 years old. For 7 long years I worked multiple jobs, sacrificing weekends, holidays, and social events to save for my dream home. No loans from parents, no inheritance, just pure determination. When I finally got the keys to my beautiful craftsman house, all I wanted was to share that moment with my family. I spent weeks planning the perfect housewarming party. I sent invitations, prepared special family recipes, and waited eagerly for everyone to arrive. But as hours passed, the doorbell remained silent. They never came. Before I share my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you've ever felt invisible to the people who should care the most. I grew up in a modest middle-class neighborhood in Portland. My childhood home was nothing extraordinary, a simple 3-bedroom ranch with faded blue siding and a small backyard where my dad built me a swing set. Though it wasn't fancy, that house represented stability and security until I turned 12. That was the year my parents' marriage crumbled. The arguments had been building for months, hushed voices behind closed doors that gradually escalated into full-blown shouting matches in the kitchen. I'd hide in my bedroom, pillow over my ears, trying to block out the sound of their marriage dissolving one accusation at a time. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. My dad, Thomas, packed his belongings into his Subaru and moved across the country to Boston for a new job opportunity. The physical distance quickly became emotional distance too. Our weekly phone calls dwindled to monthly, then to just major holidays and birthdays. Within 2 years he had remarried and started a new family with his wife Linda, gaining 2 stepchildren and eventually having another daughter. His Christmas card showed the perfect blended family, while I stood as the awkward appendage during my summer visits, the daughter from a previous life who never quite fit in. My mother Karen didn't waste much time either. 6 months after the divorce, she introduced me to Robert, a successful real estate developer whose income far exceeded what my father had made as a high school math teacher. Robert brought along his own baggage, or rather his own children, Jake, who was 14 and already displaying the entitled attitude that comes with wealth, and Madison, a 13-year-old who treated our first meeting like a cold job interview. When Mom and Robert married the following spring, we moved into his sprawling Tudor home in the wealthy West Hills neighborhood. Suddenly I had my own bathroom and a bedroom twice the size of my old one, but the house never felt like home. I was the obvious outlier in our newly formed family unit. "Jessica, please try to fit in," my mother would whisper before dinner parties. "Robert is giving us such an opportunity for a better life." The unspoken message was clear: don't rock the boat, be grateful, make yourself smaller to accommodate this new reality. As the years passed, I watched my mother transform. Her drugstore makeup was replaced with designer brands, her casual clothes swapped for tailored outfits. She joined the country club and took up tennis. The woman who once made pancakes in the shape of animals on Sunday mornings now organized brunches catered by local chefs. Most painfully, I noticed how differently she treated Robert's children compared to me. When Madison needed help with her science project, Mom stayed up all night assisting her. When I asked for help with my English essay, she suggested I figure it out myself because independence was important. When Jake crashed his car, Robert and Mom immediately bought him a new one. When I needed money for a school trip, I was told to babysit to earn it because building work ethic is essential. College was my escape. I chose Oregon State University, far enough for independence but close enough to drive home if needed, though those visits became increasingly rare. I majored in accounting, a practical choice that promised stability, unlike my step-siblings who received full rides from their parents. I cobbled together scholarships, student loans, and worked part-time at the campus bookstore and as a teaching assistant for introductory accounting courses. Those college years solidified my dream of having my own home someday, a place where I belonged completely, where no one could make me feel like an unwelcome guest. I'd walk through the historic neighborhoods near campus, admiring the craftsman houses with their wide porches and character, imagining a future where I had created my own safe haven. After graduation, I landed an entry-level position at Bennett & Associates, a mid-sized accounting firm in Portland. My starting salary was modest, but it felt like incredible wealth after the lean college years. I rented a tiny apartment with 2 roommates, Stephanie, a nurse, and Tara, a graphic designer. We shared a bathroom, fought over refrigerator space, and took turns dealing with our landlord when the heating broke down every winter. My first promotion came 18 months into the job. I had stayed late consistently, volunteered for the tax season overtime that others avoided, and carefully documented process improvements that saved the firm valuable time. My supervisor noticed, and my salary increased by 15%. That night, I opened a dedicated savings account labeled Future Home and made my first deposit of $500. It wasn't much, but it was a beginning. I calculated that at my current salary and with my existing expenses, saving for a decent down payment would take approximately 15 years. That timeline felt impossibly long. I needed to accelerate my plan. The next morning, I began searching for ways to increase my income without sacrificing my primary career path. That weekend, I distributed flyers offering bookkeeping services to small businesses in my neighborhood. Within 3 weeks, I had my first client, a family-owned Italian restaurant struggling to keep their financial records organized. 2 months later, I added a boutique clothing store, and by the end of the year, I was managing the books for 5 local businesses on evenings and weekends. My dream was taking shape, one additional deposit at a time. With my side business growing, I created an ambitious but detailed financial plan. I determined that if I maintained my current lifestyle, increased my client base gradually, and invested a portion of my savings wisely, I could accumulate enough for a down payment and emergency fund within 7 years. This timeline felt challenging but achievable. I created a budget spreadsheet that tracked every dollar coming in and going out. My roommates teased me about my frugality, the way I would unplug appliances to save electricity, repair clothes instead of replacing them, and prepare all my meals at home. My lunch bag became a fixture in the office refrigerator while colleagues ordered delivery. "Live a little, Jessica," my coworker Brian would say as the team headed out for happy hour. "You can't take it with you when you're gone." But I had a vision that sustained me through the sacrifice. Occasionally, I joined them for a single happy hour drink before heading to my next bookkeeping client, but most social invitations were politely declined. My mother noticed my absence at family gatherings. "You missed Madison's graduation dinner," she said during one of our increasingly rare phone conversations. "I had to finish a tax project for the Wilson account," I explained. "It was a deadline I couldn't miss." "You work too much, Jessica. It's becoming an obsession. Robert says you're developing unhealthy priorities." Of course, Robert would have an opinion about my choices. "I have goals, Mom, important ones, more important than family." The question stung because she knew the answer. Family had meant little to her when she chose Robert's children over me repeatedly for years. Still, I tried to maintain connections, sending birthday gifts and making appearances at major holidays when my schedule permitted. My stepsister Madison announced her engagement during my 3rd year of saving. The wedding would be a lavish affair at Sunriver Resort, with the rehearsal dinner at an exclusive vineyard. When I explained I couldn't afford to participate as a bridesmaid due to the required expenses, my mother was mortified. "Robert will cover it," she insisted. "No thank you," I replied firmly. "I'll attend as a guest, but I'm not comfortable accepting that kind of financial help." "Why must you be so stubborn? Jake and Madison accept our help. That's what families do. They've always accepted your help, Mom." I wasn't given that option. The conversation ended with her frustration and my renewed determination. The wedding came and went, with me seated at the distant cousin table while the family took professional photos without me. By year 4, my savings plan was accelerating. A promotion at work and 3 new bookkeeping clients increased my income substantially. I moved my savings to a high-yield account and continued to live as though my salary hadn't changed at all. The physical toll of working 70-hour weeks began to show. Dark circles became permanent fixtures under my eyes. My doctor warned about elevated stress levels and recommended cutting back on work. Instead, I joined a 24-hour gym, fitting in early morning workouts to maintain my health while keeping my work schedule intact. I tracked my progress on a vision board in my bedroom. Magazine cutouts of craftsman homes surrounded a savings thermometer that I updated monthly. Each time I colored in another increment, I felt a surge of pride and determination. "You've saved how much?" Stephanie asked incredulously one evening when she spotted my tracking chart. "That's impressive, but when do you actually enjoy life?" "This is me enjoying life," I replied. "I'm building something meaningful." By year 5, I had enough for a down payment on a modest condo, but I held firm to my original vision of a standalone home with character. The market was heating up in Portland, with prices rising faster than anticipated. I adjusted my plan, taking on 2 additional clients and investing more aggressively. I kept my family updated on my progress, though their responses were consistently underwhelming. "You could just marry someone successful like your mother did," Jake joked during a rare dinner together. "Much easier than killing yourself working. Some of us prefer to earn what we have," I replied, causing an uncomfortable silence at the table. Year 6 brought a setback when one of my largest bookkeeping clients closed their business. The temporary income reduction forced me to tighten my already strict budget even further. I canceled my streaming subscriptions, switched to a cheaper cell phone plan, and took on grocery delivery shifts on Sundays. The final stretch, year 7, was both the most challenging and rewarding. The housing market in Portland had become increasingly competitive, with homes selling within days of listing, often above asking price. I increased my target savings amount to remain competitive in bidding situations. My social life had dwindled to almost nothing. Friends stopped inviting me to events knowing I would decline. Dating was non-existent. Who would want to date someone who worked constantly and penny-pinched obsessively? My world had narrowed to my jobs, my savings goal, and my dwindling sleep. But on a cold January morning in the 7th year, I checked my savings account and realized I had done it, including my emergency fund. I had saved enough for a substantial down payment on a home in my target price range. I had reached my goal 3 months ahead of schedule. That evening I opened a bottle of champagne I'd been saving for a special occasion. My roommates joined me in a toast. To Jessica, Stephanie said, raising her glass, the most determined person I know, to new beginnings. I added, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. 7 years of sacrifice had finally paid off. It was time to find my home. I contacted a realtor the following week. Rachel Spencer came highly recommended for first-time homebuyers, and her warm smile and no-nonsense attitude made me feel instantly comfortable. Let's talk about your must-haves versus your nice-to-haves, she said during our first meeting. I showed her pictures of craftsman homes I'd admired over the years, explained my desire for a quiet neighborhood with character, and emphasized that I was prepared to take on renovation projects if necessary. Your budget is solid for a starter home, Rachel noted, but finding a craftsman in good condition within that range might be challenging in today's market. Are you open to compromises? On certain features, yes, I replied, but not on the style or the soul of the place. Our first day of house hunting was discouraging. We viewed 6 properties, and each one fell short in significant ways. The craftsman-style homes within my budget needed extensive repairs, not the manageable projects I'd envisioned, but major structural issues that would drain my finances. The homes in better condition were bland contemporary builds lacking any character. This is only day 1. Rachel reassured me, the right house is out there. Weeks passed and my frustration mounted. I began expanding my search area, looking at neighborhoods I hadn't initially considered. During the day, I'd work at my accounting job, then spend evenings scrolling through real estate listings until my eyes burned. Then, on a rainy Saturday in March, Rachel called. I have a pocket listing you need to see today, she said urgently. It just became available and isn't on the market yet. The owners are an elderly couple moving to Arizona for retirement. It needs work but has good bones. I canceled my bookkeeping appointment and met Rachel at the address an hour later. Standing in the rain, I looked up at a 1920s craftsman with faded green paint, a wraparound porch with a slightly sagging column and windows that needed resealing. It wasn't much to look at from the outside, but something about it called to me. Inside, the house revealed its potential. Original hardwood floors lay hidden under warm carpet. Built-in bookshelves flanked a brick fireplace. The kitchen was outdated with laminate countertops and aging appliances, but spacious. Upstairs, 3 bedrooms with sloped ceilings and a bathroom with a clawfoot tub completed the picture. The roof was replaced 5 years ago, Rachel explained, and the electrical system was updated 10 years back. It needs cosmetic work and some repairs, but nothing structural according to my initial assessment. I wandered from room to room, mentally calculating renovation costs and imagining the transformation. In the largest bedroom, I stood by the window overlooking a neglected backyard with an apple tree. This was it. This was the home I'd been saving for. I want to make an offer, I told Rachel, below asking price. Given the condition and repairs needed, we submitted our offer that evening. The asking price was $425,000. I offered $395,000 with a quick closing timeline. Then began the agonizing wait. 2 days later, Rachel called with news that sent my heart sinking. The sellers received another offer. She said, "It's slightly higher than yours." "How much higher?" "Can I counter?" "You could, but there's something else to consider. The competing buyer is an investor planning to flip the house. The sellers are conflicted because they raised their family in this home and would prefer it go to someone who will love it rather than just profit from it." An idea formed in my mind. Can I write them a letter, explaining what this house means to me? Technically, such letters can be problematic from a fair housing perspective, but since the seller specifically mentioned caring about the future of the house, I can pass along a letter focusing strictly on your intentions for the property, not your personal characteristics. That night, I poured my heart into writing that letter. I explained my 7-year journey of saving, my love for craftsman architecture, and my commitment to restoring the home's original beauty while making it my own. I promised to maintain the character that made the house special, and to create a home where new memories could thrive alongside the history embedded in its walls. 3 excruciating days passed before Rachel called again. "Jessica, are you sitting down?" My heart raced. "Just tell me." "They accepted your offer. The other buyer offered $10,000 more, but your letter convinced them. They want you to have the house." Tears filled my eyes as the reality sank in. After 7 years of sacrifice and determination, my dream was becoming reality. The closing process moved quickly. As I had promised, I signed countless documents, paid the down payment that represented years of disciplined saving, and finally, 6 weeks after that rainy Saturday, Rachel handed me the keys. "Congratulations, homeowner," she said with a genuine smile. I drove to the house alone, climbed the porch steps, and unlocked the front door. Standing in the empty living room, I felt a surge of emotions: pride, accomplishment, joy, and beneath it all, a sense of belonging I hadn't experienced since childhood. This house was mine. Every imperfection, every creaking floorboard, every sun-faded patch of wallpaper, all mine to restore, to transform, to love. I walked through each room again, this time as the owner, mentally planning renovations and placement of furniture I didn't yet own. In the primary bedroom, I stood at the same window where I had first decided to make an offer. The apple tree in the backyard had begun to bloom. White petals bright against branches still bare from winter. 7 years of sacrifice had led to this moment. I was home. The magnitude of work ahead became apparent the first night I spent in my new home. The central heating struggled against the spring chill, windows rattled with each gust of wind, and the ancient refrigerator hummed so loudly it disrupted my sleep. Standing in the kitchen the next morning, nursing a cup of coffee, I felt momentary panic. What had I gotten myself into? But panic quickly gave way to determination. I created a renovation plan, prioritizing projects by necessity and budget. First came the essential repairs: fixing the leaking kitchen sink, replacing broken window seals, and addressing the sagging porch column that threatened to become a structural issue. For skills I didn't possess, YouTube became my instructor. I spent evenings watching tutorials on basic plumbing repairs, wall patching, and carpentry. What I couldn't learn online, I sought help for through community resources. The local hardware store offered weekend workshops on home repair basics, which I attended faithfully. The first major transformation was removing the worn carpet to reveal the original hardwood floors beneath. I spent an entire weekend on my hands and knees, pulling up carpet and hundreds of staples, then another week sanding and refinishing the wood. The process was exhausting, but the result, warm oak floors that gleamed in the sunlight, was worth every blister and backache. I became a regular at estate sales, thrift stores, and online marketplaces, hunting for furniture that complemented the home's character without draining my renovation budget. My greatest find was a 1930s dining table and chairs at an estate sale for just $200, solid wood pieces that merely needed refinishing. The kitchen presented the biggest challenge and commanded the largest portion of my budget. I saved by keeping the original layout but splurged on quality materials: quartz countertops, ceramic farmhouse sink, and energy-efficient appliances. I learned to install backsplash tile from an online tutorial. Though my first attempt took 3 times longer than the easy 2-hour project the video promised. Weekdays belonged to my accounting career, but evenings and weekends were devoted to home transformation. I developed a rhythm: accounting by day, renovator by night. Coworkers noticed the paint perpetually embedded under my fingernails and the happy exhaustion that replaced the stressed fatigue of my saving years. "You look tired but different somehow," my supervisor commented one morning. "More content." "I'm building something that matters," I replied simply. 6 months into ownership, I experienced my first major setback when a summer storm revealed multiple roof leaks that had been missed in the home inspection. The repairs depleted my emergency fund, forcing me to delay cosmetic updates to the bathrooms. I took on 3 additional bookkeeping clients to rebuild my savings, falling back into the grueling schedule I thought I'd left behind. As fall approached, I tackled the overgrown yard. The apple tree received professional pruning, while I taught myself basic landscaping. I created flower beds along the front walkway, planted native shrubs for privacy along the property line, and installed a small vegetable garden in the sunny corner of the backyard. By winter, the exterior transformation was remarkable. New paint in a deep blue with crisp white trim replaced the faded green. The sagging porch column stood straight again, supporting a porch swing I'd found at a garage sale. Window boxes awaited spring flowers. Neighbors I'd never met stopped to compliment the changes. One elderly woman telling me, "You've brought this grand old lady back to life. She's been waiting for someone like you." The interior evolution was equally dramatic. The living room walls now wore a warm cream color that brightened the space while honoring its vintage character. built-in bookshelves stripped of multiple layers of paint and restored to their original wood finish, displayed my modest book collection and treasured photographs. The brick fireplace, once covered in decades of soot, now showcased its natural red tones after careful cleaning. My bedroom became a peaceful retreat with light blue walls, white linens, and sheer curtains that filtered the morning sunlight. I'd splurged on a quality mattress, my one true luxury, reasoning that after years of saving and physical renovation work, my body deserved that comfort. The guest bedroom and home office remained works in progress, but even in their unfinished state, they represented potential rather than neglect. Every completed project, no matter how small, filled me with satisfaction. This was the tangible result of 7 years of sacrifice, a home transformed by my own hands, a reflection of my vision and perseverance. As the 1-year anniversary of homeownership approached, I realized how much of myself I had poured into these walls. The house had become more than a structure, it had become an extension of my identity, a physical manifestation of my journey to independence. On a Sunday afternoon in early spring, I stood in my completed kitchen, creamy white cabinets, navy blue island open shelving displaying carefully curated dishes, and felt overwhelming pride. The house wasn't perfect, some projects remained for future weekends, but it was unmistakably mine, created through determination rather than inheritance or marriage. I decided it was finally time to share my achievement. For a year I had worked in relative solitude, sending occasional photos to friends but focusing on the transformation rather than showcasing it. Now, with the major renovations complete and spring beginning to green the new landscaping, I was ready to open my doors. I would host a housewarming party, a celebration of both the home and the journey that had brought me here. Despite our complicated history, family should be part of this milestone. I wanted my mother to see what I had accomplished, to understand the purpose behind all those missed family gatherings. I wanted my step-siblings to witness what determination could achieve without handout. Most of all, I wanted to fill this house with people, to transform it from a structure into a home through shared laughter and conversation. With renewed excitement, I began planning the perfect housewarming celebration. I sent invitations 6 weeks in advance, elegant cards featuring a watercolor illustration of my craftsman home that I had commissioned from my former roommate Tara. For family members, I included personal notes acknowledging our limited time together in recent years and expressing my hope that this celebration would begin a new chapter in our relationships. Mom and Robert, I wrote, I know we've grown apart while I focused on this goal. I'd love for you to see what those years of work created and perhaps understand better why it mattered so much to me. To my father, whose visits to Portland had become increasingly rare, I added, Dad, it would mean everything to have you here. I think you'd be proud of what I've built on my own. The responses arrived quickly and were unanimously positive. My mother called the day she received the invitation. Jessica, the house looks charming from the illustration. Robert and I wouldn't miss it. He's already talking about giving you advice on property values in that neighborhood. I bit back a comment about not needing Robert's real estate wisdom after navigating the purchase process myself. Great, I look forward to seeing you both. My father texted his confirmation booked flight for that weekend. Can't wait to see your place, kiddo. My step-siblings Madison and Jake responded with enthusiasm that surprised me, given our strained relationship. Madison even offered to bring her signature sangria, while Jake asked if he could bring his new girlfriend. With family attendance confirmed, I expanded the guest list to include colleagues from the accounting firm, clients from my bookkeeping business who had become friends, my former roommates, and neighbors I'd connected with during the renovation process. Planning the menu became a joyful obsession. I decided to showcase family recipes, dishes that represented connections to my heritage and childhood memories. My grandmother's lasagna, my father's clam chowder, my mother's apple pie from the days before she outsourced cooking to caterers. I spent weekends testing recipes to ensure I could reproduce these dishes perfectly. The week before the party, I took 3 days off work to prepare the house. Though it was already in beautiful condition, I wanted every detail to be perfect. I polished hardwood floors until they gleamed, washed windows until they were invisible, and arranged fresh flowers throughout the rooms. The garden received extra attention, with new mulch laid and additional spring flowers planted to create bursts of color along the walkway. I rented folding chairs and an extra table to accommodate all 25 guests. The dining room table would hold the main buffet, while desserts would be displayed on the kitchen island. I created a bar area on the newly refinished sideboard in the living room, complete with cocktail recipes named after rooms in the house. The day of the party dawned sunny and mild, perfect weather for guests to enjoy both indoor and outdoor spaces. I rose early, putting the lasagna together and preparing other dishes that could be made ahead. By noon, the house filled with delicious aromas. By 3, everything was ready, food warming in the oven or chilling in the refrigerator, drinks arranged on the makeshift bar, music playing softly through the Bluetooth speakers I'd installed during renovation. The party was scheduled to begin at 4 o'clock. I took a final moment for myself, standing in the center of the living room, admiring how the setting sun cast a golden glow through the windows I had so carefully restored. This moment represented the culmination of so many years of work and sacrifice. I felt a profound sense of accomplishment and anticipation. At 4:15, I checked my phone, expecting messages about traffic delays. Nothing. By 4:30, I began adjusting the food, returning some dishes to the oven to keep warm. Perhaps everyone was running on Portland time, the local tendency to arrive casually late to social gatherings. At 5 o'clock, my phone chimed with a text from Madison. Car trouble. Jake coming to pick us up. We'll be a bit late, sorry. Relief flooded through me. Just a minor delay, then I texted back, no problem. Food's staying warm. But 5:30 came and went with no arrivals. I paced between the windows, watching the empty street. I rearranged the cheese board for the 3rd time. I checked my phone repeatedly, confirming the invitation had specified 4 o'clock. At 5:45, my mother texted, so sorry darling, but something came up with Robert's golf tournament. He's being honored for a charity donation and we simply can't miss it. Rain check. My hands trembled slightly as I read the message. Robert's golf tournament trumped my housewarming, the first family gathering I had hosted in my adult life. I swallowed hard and typed, when did you learn about the tournament? No response came. By 6:15, my father messaged, flight delayed in Chicago, won't make it in time, send pictures. One by one, the excuses arrived. Madison and Jake were now dealing with a major migraine and unexpected work emergency, respectively. My accounting colleague cited childcare issues and forgotten prior commitments. By 7 o'clock, it became clear that no one was coming. I sat alone at my dining table, surrounded by enough food to feed 25 people. The lasagna dried out in the oven, the signature cocktails remained unmixed. The carefully selected playlist cycled through a second time with no one to appreciate it. A hollow feeling expanded in my chest. 7 years of work had culminated in this beautiful home, but in this moment, it felt emptier than my old shared apartment ever had. I had created the perfect setting but couldn't conjure the people to fill it. I poured myself a glass of wine and walked through each room, seeing them through the eyes I had imagined my guests would have, impressed, congratulatory, perhaps even envious. Instead, no one had seen the transformation but me. As evening deepened into night, I wrapped portions of food for the freezer, corked opened wine bottles, and blew out the decorative candles that had burned down to stubs. The silence of the house pressed around me, broken only by the occasional creak of settling woodwork, the voice of an old house that now seemed like my only companion. I carried my wine to the porch swing and sat watching darkness claim the neighborhood. Lights glowed in surrounding homes, silhouettes of families moving behind windows, the distant sound of laughter from a gathering somewhere down the block. I created a beautiful home but failed to fill it with connections that mattered. That night I slept fitfully in my carefully decorated bedroom, waking repeatedly to the unfamiliar sound of nothing, no excuses, no apologies, just the resounding absence of the family I had hoped would finally see me. Morning arrived with sunshine that felt inappropriately cheerful. My phone displayed a cascade of messages sent after I'd finally fallen asleep, casual apologies and promises to catch up soon that carried little sincerity. I responded with brief acknowledgments, unable to express the depth of my disappointment through text messages. No problem, maybe next time, I wrote to Madison, though the words felt hollow. Hope the tournament went well, I replied to my mother, swallowing the hurt that threatened to close my throat. I spent Sunday cleaning up the remnants of the party that never happened, donating unopened beverages and untouched desserts to my neighbors, who accepted them with genuine appreciation and invitations to their own future gatherings. Monday brought the distraction of work, though colleagues who had promised to attend the housewarming avoided eye contact in the break room. I buried myself in spreadsheets and client meetings, grateful for the numbing effect of numbers and professional interactions. That evening, scrolling mindlessly through social media, I froze at the sight of photos posted by my stepsister Madison. They showed a backyard gathering, a casual barbecue at my stepbrother Jake's apartment complex. The timestamp indicated it had taken place Saturday afternoon. Extending into the evening, my mother and Robert appeared in several images, drinks in hand, laughing with Jake's friends. The caption read, impromptu get-together with the fam. Sometimes the unplanned parties are the best ones. The betrayal sliced through me with unexpected sharpness. Not car trouble, not migraines. They had simply chosen a last-minute barbecue over the celebration I had planned for weeks. They hadn't even bothered to create convincing excuses. I closed the app and sat in stunned silence. Then, with hands that shook slightly, I called my mother. She answered on the fourth ring, her voice wary. "Jessica, everything okay?" "I saw Madison's photos from Saturday," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Interesting that her car trouble and migraine didn't prevent her from attending Jake's barbecue. Silence stretched between us before she sighed. "Jessica, don't make this into something it's not." "What exactly is it, then? Because from where I'm sitting it looks like my entire family lied to avoid coming to my housewarming." "It's just a house, Jessica," she said, her tone dismissive. "You're making far too much of this. We'll see it eventually." "Just a house," I repeated, disbelief coloring my words. "Mom, I worked 70-hour weeks for 7 years to buy this home. This represents everything I've worked for since college." "And that's exactly the problem," she replied, her voice hardening. "You've prioritized this obsession with independence above family for years. You've missed countless family events because of work or saving money. You can't expect everyone to drop everything the one time you decide family matters." Her words hit with the precision of arrows finding their target. There was truth in them. I had missed family gatherings, had prioritized my goal above social connections, but the hypocrisy of her statement ignited a slow-burning anger. "I missed family events because I was working multiple jobs," I said carefully. "I was building something from nothing, without support. Meanwhile, you gave Madison and Jake everything, paid for their education, their cars, their down payments. They never had to choose between family gatherings and financial security because you ensured they never faced that dilemma." "Robert and I helped them because that's what parents do," she countered. "You always refused our help out of some misguided principle." "Was it ever genuinely offered, really offered, Mom? Or was help always conditional on fitting into Robert's vision of family, on accepting my place as the outsider who should be grateful for scraps of attention?" Her sharp intake of breath told me I'd struck a nerve. "That's not fair." Neither was standing alone in a house full of food waiting for family who chose a spontaneous barbecue instead. The conversation devolved from there, old wounds reopened and examined under the harsh light of accumulated resentments. We ended the call with nothing resolved, a deeper chasm now evident between us. The following day, my phone rang with Robert's number displayed, an unprecedented occurrence that signaled the severity of the situation. I answered cautiously. "Jessica," he began without greeting, "your mother is upset. I think we need to clear the air." "I agree," I replied, surprising him with my directness. "Good. We'd like you to come to dinner this Sunday. The whole family will be there." I agreed, though anxiety knotted my stomach at the prospect. The week passed in a blur of work and renovation projects I used to distract myself from the upcoming confrontation. I installed new bathroom fixtures with methodical focus, the physical labor providing release for my emotional tension. Sunday arrived with threatening storm clouds that matched my mood. I drove to my mother and Robert's house, a trip I hadn't made in nearly 8 months, rehearsing what I wanted to say, knowing family dynamics would likely derail my carefully prepared remarks. Dinner began with artificial pleasantries, everyone avoiding the obvious tension until the main course was served. Robert, seated at the head of the table as always, cleared his throat to command attention. "Jessica," he began, his tone one he might use with difficult clients, "I understand you're upset about the party, but this reaction seems excessive for a simple scheduling conflict." "It wasn't a scheduling conflict," I replied evenly. "It was a deliberate choice to go elsewhere after confirming attendance at my event." Madison had the grace to look embarrassed, while Jake studied his plate with sudden interest. "Regardless," Robert continued, "your mother and I have been talking. We think perhaps this home purchase has put too much pressure on you. If you're struggling financially with the renovations, we're prepared to help now that you've proven you can do this on your own." The condescension in his offer ignited something in me, not the familiar hurt of exclusion but a clear, bright anger that felt surprisingly empowering. "I'm not struggling financially," I said clearly. "I didn't invite you to my home to ask for money. I invited you because despite everything you're my family, and I foolishly thought you might be proud of what I've accomplished." "Of course we're proud," my mother interjected, glancing nervously at Robert, "but was it worth isolating yourself for 7 years, worth missing family milestones?" "That's the heart of it, isn't it?" I said, finally understanding. "You're not upset that I missed family events. You're upset that I proved I didn't need the financial support that keeps everyone else at this table obligated to Robert's approval." The silence that followed confirmed my words had hit their mark. Robert's jaw tightened, while my mother's eyes widened in alarm. "That's completely unfair," Madison protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" I challenged. "Jake crashed 3 cars before he was 20, and Robert replaced each one. You had a $75.00 wedding fully funded by them. Both of you received down payments for your homes. That creates obligation, whether you acknowledge it or not." "So you're better than us because you refused help?" Jake scoffed. "No," I said quietly. "I'm different because I wasn't offered the same help, and now I've shown I didn't need it anyway." "If this dinner was your idea of reconciliation," Robert said coldly, "you've chosen a strange approach." "This dinner was your idea," I reminded him, "and it wasn't about reconciliation. It was about reasserting control through financial offers I don't need and establishing that I overreacted to being stood up by my entire family." I stood, placing my napkin beside my barely touched meal. "I've spent most of my life feeling like an outsider in this family. I built my home as a place where I belong completely. Your absence at my housewarming just confirmed what I've always known. I need to create my own definition of family based on mutual respect and genuine support." "Jessica, please," my mother began, tears forming. "I love you, Mom," I said gently, "but I won't apologize for the path I've chosen or for expecting my family to show up when they promise to. When you're ready to see my home and truly celebrate my achievement, you're welcome anytime, but not before then." I walked out into the spring rain, each step feeling lighter than the last. For the first time, I had spoken my truth without tempering it to maintain fragile family connections. The drive home through the storm mirrored my emotional state, turbulent but cleansing, challenging but necessary. As I pulled into my driveway, the porch light I'd left on glowed welcomingly through the rain. This house, earned through years of determination, stood as testament to my resilience. I had built more than walls and a roof. I had built independence that couldn't be diminished by others' absence. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, the familiar creaking of the floorboards greeting me like an old friend. Family had failed to show up, but perhaps that made room for connections that would truly value what I had created both in this home and in myself. The weeks following the confrontation at my mother's house passed in a strange limbo. Family communication dwindled to occasional terse text messages. My father, hearing about the conflict secondhand, made half-hearted attempts to mediate before retreating to the safety of distance. Madison sent a carefully worded apology that acknowledged her behavior without accepting genuine responsibility. My mother left tearful voicemails that centered on her hurt feelings rather than understanding mine. For the first time, my beautiful home felt hollow. I would return from work to perfect rooms that echoed with silence. The dining room table where I had imagined lively family dinners remained largely unused. The guest room waited for visitors who never materialized. I had created a perfect setting for a life that seemed suddenly emptier than before. "You seem distracted," my supervisor commented during a quarterly review meeting. "Your work is excellent as always, but you're not quite present. Everything okay?" I offered a vague explanation about family complications, unwilling to reveal the depth of my isolation. Amber Davis, a coworker I knew casually from the tax department, lingered after the meeting. "I'm sorry I couldn't make your housewarming," she said sincerely. "My daughter's dance recital was the same day. I should have let you know sooner." "It's fine," I replied automatically. "It was just a party." She studied me with unexpected perceptances. "Didn't go well, did it?" Something about her direct question broke through my practiced composure. "No one came," I admitted, the words catching in my throat. "Not a single person." Amber's expression reflected genuine shock and sympathy. "Jessica, I'm so sorry. That's awful." I shrugged, trying to reclaim my professional demeanor. "It's fine. Just revealed some truths about my relationships I needed to see." "Listen," she said impulsively, "a few friends are coming over for dinner at my place this Saturday. Nothing fancy, just good food and conversation. Would you like to join us? No pressure at all." My instinct was to decline. Accepting last-minute invitations from colleagues fell outside my carefully structured life, but the prospect of another weekend alone in my beautiful empty house tipped the scales. "That would be nice," I found myself saying. "Thank you." Saturday arrived with unexpected nervous energy. I hadn't attended a social gathering unrelated to work in so long that I felt oddly unprepared. I changed outfits twice, finally settling on casual jeans and a sweater. I brought a bottle of wine and homemade brownies, second-guessing both choices during the entire drive to Amber's modest bungalow in southeast Portland. The dinner gathering was small, just 6 people, but lively. Amber introduced me to her husband Mark, their friends Elijah and Diana, and another colleague Ben from the IT department. The conversation flowed naturally, covering everything from local politics to favorite hiking trails, with none of the strained politeness that characterized family dinners at my mother and Robert's house. "So Jessica," Diana asked during dessert, "Amber mentioned you recently bought a house, first-time homeowner?" "Yes," I replied cautiously, unsure how much Amber had shared about my housewarming disaster. "That's amazing," she said with genuine enthusiasm. "The market is so tough for buyers right now. Was it a long search?" Before I knew it, I was sharing details about finding my craftsman home, the negotiation process, and the renovation projects I'd tackled. Instead of the dismissive responses I'd grown accustomed to from family, these near strangers asked thoughtful questions and offered sincere congratulations. "You did the kitchen renovation yourself?" Elijah asked, clearly impressed. "Mark and I have been wanting to update ours, but the quotes are astronomical." "I learned most of it from YouTube tutorials," I admitted. "It took longer that way, but the savings were substantial." "You should see this place," Amber told the group. "Jessica showed me pictures and it's absolutely gorgeous." "We'd love to see it," Diana said, turning to me. "Would you ever be up for giving us a tour? No pressure, of course." The invitation caught me off guard. After the housewarming debacle, I had mentally closed off my home as a private sanctuary rather than a place for social connection, but something about this group's genuine interest pierced that defensive barrier. Actually, I heard myself saying, "Why don't you all come over next weekend? Nothing formal, just drinks and a house tour if you're interested." The words were out before I could second-guess them. To my surprise, everyone enthusiastically accepted. The following Saturday I prepared for visitors with far less pressure than the housewarming. I bought simple cheese and crackers, opened a few bottles of wine, and resisted the urge to polish every surface to perfection. When the doorbell rang at the agreed time, I opened it to find all 5 guests on my porch, punctual and bearing small housewarming gifts. "This is stunning," Diana exclaimed, stepping into the living room. "Those built-ins are original." "Yes, though restoring them nearly gave me carpal tunnel," I laughed. "The craftsmanship in these old places is incredible," Elijah noted, examining the crown molding. The house tour lasted over an hour, each room generating genuine appreciation and questions about the renovation process. In the kitchen, Amber insisted on taking photos for inspiration. In the backyard, Ben admired the vegetable garden layout and offered cuttings from his herb garden to add to mine. As we settled in the living room with wine and conversation, I felt my home transform around me. The rooms that had felt so empty now resonated with laughter and connection. These people had no obligation to be here, no family ties, no long history, yet they had shown up with sincere interest and appreciation. "We should do this regularly," Mark suggested as the evening wound down. "Rotate houses for dinner once a month. Next month could be at our place." The casual suggestion launched a tradition that gradually filled my life with meaningful connection. Our monthly dinner group expanded slightly to include Diana's sister Rachel and her husband, and Ben's roommate Tyler, a graphic designer whose artistic eye I came to value during later renovation projects. These weren't just dinner companions, they became friends who showed up consistently. When a major storm damaged my carefully restored garden, Elijah and Mark arrived the next day with replacement plants and helping hands. When I needed to replace the water heater unexpectedly, Ben researched models and helped with the installation. When I mentioned casually that I'd never had a proper birthday party as an adult, Diana organized a surprise gathering that left me speechless with gratitude. 3 months after our first dinner rotation, my mother called. "We haven't heard from you in weeks," she said, her tone hovering between concern and accusation. "Robert and I were thinking perhaps it's time we saw this house of yours." A year earlier, this overture would have filled me with desperate hope for reconciliation. Now I felt a calm certainty about my boundaries. "I'd like that," I replied honestly, "but only if you're coming to genuinely celebrate what I've built, not to evaluate or criticize." "Jessica," she sighed, "we're your family, of course we support you." "Supporting me means acknowledging that my path is valid even if it's different from the one you would have chosen for me. It means showing up when you say you will." The silence that followed suggested these terms were being considered. Finally, she said, "We'd like to visit next Sunday afternoon, if that works for you." They came, my mother, Robert, and to my surprise, my father, who had flown in specifically for the occasion. The tour was initially awkward, my mother's compliments tinged with surprise at what I had accomplished, Robert's observations focusing primarily on property values rather than the heart I had poured into each room. But as the afternoon progressed, something shifted. In the kitchen, my mother recognized the vintage canisters displayed on the open shelving. "These were Grandma's," she said softly, touching one with reverent fingers. "She taught me to bake using these," I confirmed. "I found them in a box in your attic last Christmas and asked if I could have them." "They're perfect here," she acknowledged, and for a moment I glimpsed the mother I remembered from childhood, the one who made animal-shaped pancakes and taught me to garden before Robert's world consumed her. As 1 year of homeownership approached, I planned a celebration different from the ill-fated housewarming. This would be an anniversary party honoring both the home and the unexpected community it had helped me discover. I sent invitations to my monthly dinner group. Select colleagues, neighbors who had become friends, and family members who had begun the delicate work of redefining our relationships. The day of the party, 1 year after I had stood alone among untouched food and empty chairs, my home filled with people who chose to be there. My mother arrived early to help arrange flowers. My father engaged Elijah in animated conversation about the structural renovations. Even Madison came, bringing not just her promised sangria, but also a genuine apology delivered privately in the kitchen while we arranged appetizers. "I'm really sorry about the housewarming," she said, her eyes meeting mine directly. "It was thoughtless and hurtful." "Thank you for acknowledging that," I replied, accepting both the apology and the possibility of a more authentic relationship moving forward. Standing in my backyard as evening approached, watching diverse conversation groups form and dissolve among people from different aspects of my life, I felt a profound sense of completion. The house had been the goal for so long, the driving force behind years of sacrifice and determination. But now I understood that creating a home was about more than restoring hardwood floors and choosing the perfect paint colors. A true home was built from genuine connections, from people who showed up consistently, who celebrated your victories and helped shoulder your setbacks. Some of those people shared your DNA, while others entered your life unexpectedly and chose to stay. My craftsman house, with its restored details and carefully tended garden, remained a source of immense pride, tangible proof of what determination could accomplish. But the greater achievement had been recognizing when relationships no longer served me and having the courage to build connections based on mutual respect rather than obligation. 7 years of saving had bought me a house, but the past year had taught me how to transform it into a home. That lesson, painful though its delivery had been, was perhaps the most valuable result of my journey. As guests prepared to leave, many lingering on the porch to extend conversations and goodbyes, Diana hugged me tightly. "Your house is beautiful," she said, "but what you've created here goes beyond the structure. You've built something truly special." Looking around at the faces of people who had chosen to be part of my life, I knew she was right. The empty rooms that had echoed with silence after the housewarming now held memories of shared meals, heartfelt conversations, impromptu gatherings, and genuine connection. I had found my belonging not in the walls I had renovated, but in the community I had gradually, intentionally built within them. That night, after all the guests had departed, I sat on my porch swing watching the stars appear above my quiet street. 7 years of sacrifice had led to this place, this moment, this understanding. The journey had been longer and more complicated than I'd anticipated, but the destination proved worthy of every step. Has your family ever disappointed you when you needed their support the most? Have you ever had to create your own version of family with friends who showed up when blood relatives didn't? Share your stories in the comments below, and if this journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that sometimes the most beautiful homes are built not just with lumber and paint, but with courage and self-worth. Thank you for being part of my story today.